What would operationalizing a Pan-African partnership to end violence mean? What indicators, in addition to those being developed by the UN Statistical Commission, will help us realize our shared vision? From the Secretariat of the Global Partnership's view, we are in the process of developing our indicators for each of our objectives, and we will do this in collaboration with the African Partnership to End Violence Against Children and our other regional counterparts. Could the role of a regional body be to support the pathfinding countries, as one example? How do we support the engagement of children and young people within pathfinding countries? These are all questions I look forward to exploring with you here in the next 2 days. Ladies and gentlemen, End Violence offers an opportunity for national and regional bodies who are dedicated to ending violence against children to come together for the first time to combine all of our efforts and maximize our collective impact. Governments, UN agencies, international organizations, civil society, faith groups, the private sector, the foundations, researchers, and children. They are the fabric of this collective endeavor. And as a final plug, I encourage all of you to join the partnership via our website, where you will find some advice on how to join the global partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, the children and youth of Africa, as with the rest of the world, are not a litany of problems to be solved. They are intelligent rights holders with great capacity to transform their lives and a whole continent. End Violence is a vehicle to carve out a safe home and communities that will enrich their development and their achievement of everything that is possible for every African child and every child in the world. Isn't that what we want for all of the world's children? To achieve the possible? I say yes. Thank you once again for having me here. I look forward to working with all of you, to learning from all of you in the coming 2 days. And I truly believe that in the next 15 years, we can end violence. And I say that with some compassion and passion, because the opposite of ending violence to me is unthinkable. Thank you very much.
I'm sure we can always interact with Dr. Susan within the meeting bilaterally, so that we learn more. And there is also a document there on the global partner.
As Teo has said, as part of the Sustainable Development Goals. That moment presented an historic opportunity to unite everyone behind a global, regional, and national commitment to protect the world's most precious asset, its children. End Violence, as we call the partnership, was created to help achieve this ambitious undertaking in every country, every community, every school, and every family. Why? The statistics are staggering. Every year, as I've said, at least 1 billion children are exposed to violence, and every 5 minutes somewhere in the world, a child dies a violent death. Each year, 3 million girls are at risk of genital cutting in Africa. Millions of girls are married before the age of 18, and 4 out of 10 boys in residential care institutions suffer physical violence. Globally, 120 million girls experienced sexual violence last year, and children living with disabilities are more likely than their non-disabled peers to experience violent discipline. But we know that this can change. We know that this cannot be allowed to continue. Theo, you noted this eloquently and passionately in the film clip. According to Dr. Margaret Chan, the Director General of the World Health Organization, and this is really important, I think, this particular focus, we know what works to prevent violence in our homes, schools, and workplaces, and on our streets and in our playgrounds. We should take inspiration from governments which have demonstrated success in reducing violence by taking the steps needed. They have shown us that indeed violence is preventable. That is why the new partnership is urgently needed. Agenda 2030 calls for all countries and all stakeholders to come together in a collaborative partnership to deliver sustainable development to all. We are reminded to extend our efforts, especially to the poorest and most vulnerable. End Violence, the new partnership, is all about doing things that will have a meaningful impact for all children everywhere. The global north and south, rich and poor, and in times of war and peace. By bringing together governments, United Nations agencies, international organizations, civil society, faith groups, the private sector, philanthropic foundations, researchers and academics, and importantly, children and young people themselves, the partnership aims to build on successes achieved to date, lessons learned, and the work of other partnerships, like Gavi and the Global Fund. End violence will be fortified by the efforts of all, from national civil society organizations to the two SRSGs, one on violence and the other on children in conflict. We aim to unite everyone with one thing in mind: keeping children safe and secure in a very tumultuous world. End violence is a means of implementation of Agenda 2030, supporting the achievement, in particular, of SDG Target 16.2, to end abuse, exploitation, trafficking, torture, child labor, child marriage, and all forms of violence against children. But there are other targets in addition to 16.2. And I say this importantly because the whole agenda cuts across 17 goals, and at least 4 of them relate to the safety and security of children. The partnership's mission is to make society safer for children and end violence against children everywhere. It is both a convener and a catalyst. It provides a common platform at global, regional, national, and local level where actors from across society can come together to achieve common goals. And that's the reason I'm here today, to see how we can work with the African Partnership to end violence. There are 4 principles that are fundamental to our common undertaking. The Global Partnership is rights-focused, child-centered, universal, and gender-sensitive. To dwell especially on being gender-sensitive, we note that girls experience particular forms of violence on one hand, and on the other, that boys in certain places are victimized, to say nothing of LGBTQ issues. End violence also has 4 principles that describe how we work together. Being inclusive, transparent, evidence-based, and results-oriented is central to our mission. In other words, we, like you here on the African continent, want to get stuff done, and we want that stuff to be built upon the knowledge we have all amassed over the past decades, as Theo mentioned as well. The partnership has 3 goals. Firstly, to accelerate action and implement work at scale, sharing and implementing evidence-based strategies by building and sustaining political will. Our second goal is to work with countries to accelerate action to tackle the violence that children face. And thirdly, our third goal, we are striving to strengthen collaboration, partners in country and among and between countries. The 3 goals are supported by 4 cross-cutting drivers: movement building, finances and resources, data and evidence, and monitoring and evaluation. To achieve the first goal of building and sustaining political will, the partnership will build and achieve the SDGs to end violence against children by promoting evidence-based strategies that will lead to significant, sustained, and measurable reductions in violence. And you'll hear about those evidence-based strategies in detail a little bit later today. The objectives we will measure ourselves against to achieve the goals are, first, that all countries commit to action to end violence against children. Second, that violence against children and the actions needed to prevent it are part of national, regional, and global discourse. And third, that all countries see an increase in finances put towards ending violence and exploitation in all settings. To achieve the acceleration of action, partners will work together to accelerate action to tackle the violence children face, with an initial focus on countries that wish to lead the moment to end violence. Our 3 objectives for the acceleration of action are that all countries adopt national legislation, policies, and programs to protect children from violence and exploitation, including online exploitation and sexual violence online. Secondly, Pathfinder countries provide increased access for children to comprehensive, coordinated, and multi-sectoral services. And these Pathfinder countries are early adopters of Agenda 2030 and early adopters of the partnership strategy with political will to end violence expressed at the highest level possible in government. And third, our third objective in accelerating action is that children affected by violence, including those in conflict settings and on the move, can access child-centered services. These Pathfinders are making a formal pledge to support action to end all forms of violence. These are countries that are pledging to take action through implementing this package of strategies I've described and you'll hear more about. There are 7 strategies under the leadership of WHO pulled together in a package called INSPIRE, and my colleague Sabine will talk about them later, but just briefly, the I in INSPIRE stands for the implementation and enforcement of laws. N, addressing norms and values. S, safe environments. P, and my personal favorite, parents and caregiver support. I, income and economic strengthening. R, response and support services for victims. And the E in INSPIRE stands for education and life skills.